Hasser, and today we're going to be talking about why it is important to learn your sounds one sound at a time, and then also why it's important to learn about sounds versus just individual letters. So it is a common practice in kindergartens around the country that you would learn letter of the week. And letter of the week, even though I know there's no ill will by these teachers, what happens is that even if you got through the entire alphabet, you would never get to CH or SH, sh, and you would not have any possibility of them blending words together at that point. So the way that we do it is we start with the sound first. So we introduce the sound. We make kids aware of what that sound is. So if I said, have you guys ever heard the sound? And I would ask, okay, we're not going to talk about the letter name because if they're young, we want them to know this is a sound. It's in lots of words that I know that I can't spell. But I can tell you potato, I can tell you pumpkin, I can tell you pot, I can tell you lots of different words that have that in it. I can tell you jump and I hear it at the end of the word, but I may not necessarily know how to spell those words. So you want to get them to be aware of the sound and how they use it in their everyday language, and then you assign the letter to it. Okay, so do you know how we spell the sound? And then they would start using the letter P. And the sound first method is really great for kids because when you start that way, even if you start with older kids, what's going to happen is they're going to say, okay, I hear the E sound in a word. I'm spelling the word happy, and I hear E. And they know that it could be EE, they know it could be EA, they know it could be EI, they know it could be E by itself, but we would start to give them, guidelines. So if you hear the E sound and that's at the end of a multisyllabic word, then you spell it with a Y the majority of the time. Of course there are exceptions. There are exceptions in our language, but we want to give kids guidelines that will cover 80% or more of the language, and that way they can use them when they're trying to figure out how to spell words. Because you could definitely say, what about employee? That's EE and not a Y. Well, that means a person who, right? So if you're an employee, you're a person who. And then you could say coffee. And I'd have to say, I don't know why that is. But that's okay, because I know how to spell 80% or more of the sound E at the end of a word, and that's going to give me pretty good odds. And what's left is having to memorize things like coffee and toffee. But I can spell family and company and silly and all of those. So if you learn one sound at a time and you really understand those sounds, it makes it so much easier to build words and to spell words. And if you can read a word, doesn't mean you can spell a word. But if you can spell a word, you can definitely read it. So if kids are learning sounds and they're learning one at a time, be patient. It will really pay off in the long run. Thank you for joining me.